what flight he would be on, and he hung up the phone and felt like an idiot. Like an angry man with a cane who pokes a hole through the floor of heaven and is scalded by the joy that pours down upon him. Raymond had a capacity for using satisfactions against himself. When he got off the plane at St. Louis Airport, he felt like running. He decided Mavoli's father must be that midget with the eyeglasses like milk bottle bottoms, who was enjoying sweating so much. The man would be all over him like a charging elk in a minute. "Hold it, hold it," the pimply press photographer said loudly. "Put it down," Raymond snarled in a voice which was even more unpleasant than his normal voice. All at once the photographer was less sure of himself. "What's the matter?" he asked in bewilderment, because he lived at a time when only sex criminals and dope peddlers tried to refuse to have their pictures taken by the press. "I flew all the way in here to see Ed Mavoli's father," Raymond said, despising himself for throwing up such corn. "You want a picture? Go find him, because you ain't going to take one of me without he's in it." "Listen to that genuine bluff sergeant version of police verso," Raymond cried out to himself. "I am playing the authentic war buddy so deeply that I will have to mail in a royalty check for the stock rights. Look at that clown of a photographer trying to cope with phenomena. Any minute now he will realize that he is standing right beside Mavoli's father." "Oh, Sergeant," the girl said. So then he knew who she was. She wasn't red-eyed and runny-nosed with grief for the dead hero, so she had to be the cub reporter who had been assigned to write the big local angle on the White House and the hero. And he had probably written the lead for her with that sappy grandstand play. "I'm Ed's father," the sweat manufacturer said. "It was December, for God's sake. What's with all the dew?" "I'm Arthur Mavoli. I'm sorry about this. I just happened to mention at the paper that you had called all the way from San Francisco and that you had offered to stop over and see Eddie's mother on the way to the White House. And the word somehow got upstairs to the city desk, and, well, that's the newspaper business, I guess." Raymond took 3 steps forward, grasped Mr. Mavoli's hand, gripped his right forearm with his own left hand, transmitted the steely glance and the iron stare and the frozen fix. He felt like Captain Idiot in one of those space comic books, and the photographer got the picture and lost all interest in them. "May I ask how old you are, Sergeant Shaw?" the young chick said, notebook ready, pencil poised, as though she and Mavoli were about to give him a fitting. And he figured reflexively that this could be the first assignment she had ever gotten after years of journalism school and months of social notes from all over. He remembered his first assignment, and how he had feared the waffle-faced movie actor who had opened the door of the hotel suite wearing only pajama bottoms, with corny tattoos like "So Long Mabel" on each shoulder. Inside the suite, Raymond had managed to convey that he would just as soon have hit the man as talk to him, and he had said, "Give me the handout and we can save some time." The traveling press agent with the actor, a plump, bloodshot type whose glasses kept sliding down his nose, had said, "What handout?" He had snarled that maybe they would prefer it if he started out by asking what was the great man's hobby and what astrology sign he had been born under. It was hard to believe, but that man's face had been as pocked and welted as a waffle, yet he was one of the biggest names in the business, which gives an idea what those swine will do to kid the jerky public. The actor had said, "Are you scared, kid?" Then, after that, everything seemed to go okay. They got along like a bucket of chums. The point was, everybody had to start someplace. Although he felt like a slob himself for doing it, he asked Mr. Mavoli and the girl if they would have time to have a cup of coffee at the airport restaurant, because he was a newspaperman himself, and he knew that the little lady had a story to get. The little lady? That was overdoing it. He'd have to find a mirror and see if he had a wing collar on. "You were?" the girl said. "Oh, Sergeant." Mr. Mavoli said a cup of coffee would be fine with him, so they went inside. They sat down at a table in the coffee shop. The windows were steamy, business was very quiet, and unfortunately the waitress seemed to have nothing but time. They all ordered coffee, and Raymond thought he'd like to have a piece of pie, but he could not bring himself to decide what kind of pie. Did everybody have to look at him as though he were sick, because he couldn't set his taste buds in advance to be able to figure which flavor he would favor before he tasted it? Did the waitress just have to start out to recite, "We have peach pie and pumpkin," and they just yell out, "Peach, peach, peach"? What was the sense of eating in a place where they gabbled the menu at you anyway? If a man were intelligent, and he sorted through the memories of past tastes, he could not only get exactly what he wanted sensually and with a flavor sensation, but he would probably be choosing something so chemically exact that it would benefit his entire body. But how could anyone achieve such a considerate, deliberate result as that, unless one were permitted to pore over a written menu? "The prune pie is very good, sir," the waitress said. He told her he'd take the prune pie, and he hated her in a hot, resentful flash because he did not want prune pie. He hated prune pie, and he had been maneuvered into ordering prune pie by a rube waitress who would probably slobber all over his shoes for a quarter tip. "I wanted to tell you how we felt about Ed, Mr. Mavoli," Raymond said. "I want to tell you that of all the guys I ever met, there was never a happier, sweeter, or more solid guy than your son, Ed." The little man's eyes filled. He suddenly choked on a sob so loud that people at the corner, which was quite a distance away, turned around. Raymond spoke to the girl quickly to cover up. "I'm 24 years old. My astrological sign is Pisces. A very fine lady reporter on a Detroit paper once told me always to ask for their astrology sign because people love to read about astrology if they don't have to ask for it directly." "I'm Taurus," the girl said. "We'd be very good," Raymond said. She let him see just a little bit behind her expression. "I know," she said. Mr. Mavoli spoke in a soft voice. "Sergeant, you see, well, when Eddie got killed, his mother had a heart attack. And I wonder if you could spare maybe a half an hour out and back. We don't live all the way into the city. And—" "Oh, Jesus." Raymond saw himself donning the bedside manner. A bloody cardiac. The slightest touchy thing he said to her could knock the old cat over sideways with an off-key moan. But what could he do? He had elected himself head chump when he had stepped down from Valhalla and telephoned this sweaty little advantage-taker. "Mr. Mavoli," he said, slowly and softly. "I don't have to be in Washington until the day after tomorrow, but I figured I would allow a day and a half in case of bad weather, you know, on account of the White House. I can even get to Washington by train from here overnight. The Spirit of St. Louis, the same name as that plane with that fella. So please don't think I would even think of leaving town without talking to Mrs. Mavoli, Eddie's mother." He looked up and he saw how the girl was looking at him. She was a very pretty girl, a sweet-looking, nice, blonde girl. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mardell," she said. "Do you think I'll be able to get a hotel here tonight?" "I'm absolutely sure of it." "I'll take care of that, Sergeant," Mr. Mavoli said hurriedly. "In fact, the paper will take care of everything. You would certainly be welcome to stay at our place, but we just had the painters. Smells so sharp your eyes water." Raymond called for the check. They drove to the Mavolis. Mardell said she'd wait in the car, and just to forget about her. Raymond told her to get on into the paper and file her story, then drive back out to pick him up. She stared at him as if he had invented balk-line billiards. He patted her cheek, then went into the house. She put her hand on her stomach and took 3 or 4 very deep breaths. Then she started the car and went into town. The session with Mrs. Mavoli was awful, and Raymond vowed that he would never take an intelligence test, because they might lock him up as a result of what would be shown. Any cretin could have looked ahead and seen what a mess this was going to be. They all cried. People can certainly carry on, he thought, holding her fat hand because she had asked him to, and feeling sure she was going to drop dead any minute. These were the people who let a war start. Then they act surprised when their own son is killed. Mavoli was a good enough kid. He certainly was a funny kid, and with a sensational disposition, but what the hell? 20,000 were dead out there so far on the American panel, plus the UN guys, and maybe 60, 80,000 more all shot up, and this fat broad seemed to think that Mavoli was the only one who got it. Would my mother take it this big if I got it? Would anyone living or anyone running a legitimate seance, which picked up guaranteed answers from out yonder, ever be able to find out whether she could feel anything at all, about anything or anybody? Let her little Raymond pull up dead, and he knew the answer from his little mommy. If the folks would pay 1 or more votes for a sandwich, she would be happy to send for her little boy's body and barbecue him.